Hi everyone, I'm very pleased to be here today with you. I'm Jean-Baptiste Blondel. Maybe two words of Wavestone. We are a global consulting firm and we support major organizations in their critical transformation. And I've been working personally for Accor for 3 years alongside Brune Poisson. She's a group sustainability officer. So I'm very happy to be here today. I will just do a quick introduction and then give the floor to John Timson. Maybe John, you want to introduce yourself in a few words. What is Accor and who are you? And then I can start my introduction.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you everybody for your time. My name is John Timson. I work as part of the sustainability team within MIA APAC, based out of Thailand, but spend quite a bit of time in Singapore and obviously work for Accor Hotels, which most of you will be familiar with. But today I'll probably talk more around hospitality in general and give some examples of not only Accor, but some of the other great work that lots of other hotel companies do. But nice to be with you. Thanks.
Great, thanks a lot. Yeah, I don't know if you can see my screen. Just sharing a few slides, and after that will be a speech with John. Just to introduce maybe a bit the context, and of course your questions are welcome. So we'll dedicate some time at the end of the session to have your questions. So please ask them in the chat so that we have an interactive part at the end of this discussion. So just as a matter of introduction, first message is the following: doing better is not enough. Let's be clear, travel and tourism industry it has long been seen as positive for most countries and communities, but it has a major impact in terms of environment or social impact. It's roughly 10% of global carbon emissions. You've heard about intensive exploitation of natural resources, issues around mass travel and so on. So what Accor think is travel and tourism companies, they are part of the problem. They must now be part of the solution. And basically, they must contribute more than they take. So that's the philosophy, the spirit. And if I give you some figures around the stakeholders' expectation towards the hospitality industry, it's clear that there is a rising expectation for businesses to switch more sustainable models. So let's pick two figures. And this is an Accor figure. 64% of hotel owners, they expect sustainability to have an impact on their business in the near future. Another figure is about travelers. 75% of them are more likely to choose an accommodation with sustainable policies information. So I'm not going to comment all figures, but my message is it is clearly becoming urgent to acknowledge that we need to transform business model. We need to transform the way to operate, and that is the spirit of Accor. So that is why in terms of ambition, in 2021, Accor has clearly decided to accelerate its sustainable transition, and it has defined this strong ambition, redefining the boundaries of travel and tourism by making every stay a contribution to society and to the environment. So the idea behind that is to influence all the hospitality players all along the supply chain, the value chain. I'm talking about upstream players, downstream players. We're talking about real estate, agriculture, food and beverage, travel companies. So the idea is really to have a systemic change. So that is the ambition. And then if I move to the strategy, in order to achieve this ambition, Accor has developed a sustainability framework. The first idea is to put people and nature at the core, at the foundation of this framework, and to rely on science. So setting targets aligned with science, being a carbon target or nature target or whatever. So science at the core, and infusing this embedding sustainability in all pillars of the business model. And I will deep dive a bit into it. Basically, there are three parts in the business model: stay, eat, and explore. So clearly putting sustainability at the core of every activity and engaging all stakeholders with the company future-proof the business model. So what about these three pillars and the business model? The first one is stay. We are talking about 5,000 hotels, more than 5,000 hotels across the globe. Accor opens nearly one hotel a day. The idea is to operate these hotels within the planetary boundaries, meaning first decarbonizing hotels. Nearly 80% of carbon emission come from energy consumption in the hotel, so it's a real stake to decarbonize hotel, but also preserving water and natural resources, and John will surely deep dive on these topics. So we're talking about eco-design, technical design, sustainable operations, and so on. The second pillar is eat. At Accor, so it's quite a massive number of bars and restaurants, and also enhancing food experiences for the guests. We're talking about responsible sourcing, promoting local suppliers, promoting vegetarian dishes, ensuring traceability of raw materials, reducing food waste, and above all, shifting eating habits of the guests. I think you have already talked about this morning and all along the day. Changing habits is a clear stake. And finally, the third one pillar is explore. And that is where Accor wants to participate in reinventing the way of traveling, protecting natural ecosystem, biodiversity around the hotels, of course, preserving local communities. An hotel is anchored into its community and raising awareness among guests. So these are a few, just a quick overview of strategy. And I'm not going to detail the transformation path, but maybe just give you three ideas on how to roll this strategy out, because that is also where the difficulty lies in big and major organizations with lots of business units, different stakeholders. So we have defined a transformation plan around three levels. The first one is maybe the important, how to unlock sustainable mindset and culture. And for instance, all employees have to complete a mandatory sustainability training, really to understand what is at stake, environmental, social issues, what science says, what can we do at Accor, and so on. The second one is building a new vision of performance, how we gradually place extra financial performance at the same level of financial performance, and that's a huge challenge. And the third one is really being a solution provider. So Accor is here to provide sustainable solution to hotel owners, supporting them to measure their impact, carbon impact, environmental impact, social impact, helping them reporting it, helping them with a portfolio of technical organizational solutions to transform their hotels and keep their asset value. So at the end, all these actions, they intend to deliver, of course, sustainable value to stakeholders. And maybe my last message before I give the floor to John, I liked your introduction and about competition and coalition. We are strongly convinced that systemic changes only happen through collaboration. So it's very important, and that is why Accor takes collaborative actions, not only with peers and competitors, but also with institutions, governments, startups, NGOs. It's a key success factor to succeed systemic change in sustainable transformation. So that was all for my quick introduction, and I will welcome your question, of course, at the end of the session, but I would like now to give the floor to John for a deep dive in resource management, and what about also local initiatives in Asia Pacific, and maybe some examples in Singapore.
Sure. Thanks, Jean-Baptiste. I think you stole all the good things I was about to present. So I can sit here and just nod and smile. Look, I think I was listening to your presentation, and I think it's probably one of those topics that I often get asked when we speak at presentations or at events is, where do you start? So, you know, I think when you look at something that is along the lines of the Accor strategic framework, a lot of that can actually look overwhelming, and a lot of it can look as though there's a lot of moving pieces in behind each of those points. But I do think the opportunity is for us to really look at, when we're starting on this sustainability journey, is to kind of start with understand that there's going to be different players at different levels along the business. I had the privilege of being in the Pan Pacific Hotel a couple of years ago, and what they're doing with environmental controls within the hotel is absolutely amazing. So, you know, we've got companies that are looking at areas, we've got companies that are stepping into different spaces. The one thing that I like about it is, whenever we do attend an event like this, is that if we can pick up one idea from one different company, all of a sudden we can actually adopt that into our business and potentially be able to move forward. So, you know, I can walk you through each of the pillars that we're looking at, you know, the stay. What are the two big ticket items that I would take away from the stay component? And that, if you go back to what we were looking at there, was around design, and it's around attractivity. I'm an English speaker as a first language, actually only language. I'm still not sure attractivity is actually a word, but let's give it a go anyway. So the first one is really around energy and water reduction. And I often get this question of, you know, why are you doing it? Is it about your carbon footprint? Is it about, you know, reducing? Yeah, of course, that's one of the reasons why we're doing it. But I was having lunch with our Chief Development Officer today, and I was talking to him about it and why would owners do it. And if you start thinking about reducing energy and start reducing water within a hotel, all of a sudden that actually becomes a business imperative and less sustainability piece. I think one of the pieces that I like most about sustainability within Accor is it's not an add-on part of the business. It's not something that sits on the side. It's actually embedded in pretty much every decision we make. So energy and water would be a good way to start looking at what your numbers are, whether you can reduce that. Do you need a partner to support you? The second one is really around eco labels, and that's the attractivity part. So Baptiste shared that, you know, guests are looking at it, staff are looking at it, owners are looking at it. But the one thing we've got to be very careful about is around greenwashing, and around the fact that, you know, previously, prior to 2016, Accor used to sit there and do our own assessments and our own judgments on what we're doing. And a lot of other companies do that. There's other companies that started the journey with external certification much earlier than Accor, and they really do or have that leverage in that space. So by sitting there and actually handing over your business to a third party and getting them to judge your work, all of a sudden you cannot get the bias of our own internal dialogue. It's really about an external company looking at and seeing what the strength of that is. So first one around would be around, you know, looking at eco labels, looking at energy and water. If you're looking at eat, the movement into vegetarian, vegan dishes is absolutely critical at the moment. Looking at responsible sourcing, so, you know, removing additives, removing endangered fish, removing endangered seafood, considering how much meat we're actually serving within our restaurants. And again, I think probably the one journey that Accor's taken is, you can't make sustainability make somebody feel bad about their decisions, but we can help them make a smarter decision. So, you know, instead of eating red meat 7 nights a week, maybe we look at getting them down to 2 or 3 or 1 night a week, and really trying to leverage that. And if I think back to, you know, where we've come from the industry, we've always been that industry where looking at generosity has really shown luxury, but it's also shown our spirit when it comes to, I'm not just talking about Accor, I talk every hotel group. You know, the more you can put on a buffet to make it look, thinks that they're getting value for money. So we need to start changing some of those perceptions and start looking at, you know, how can we minimize the amount of food that we're wasting, use that to give better quality products, not just reduce the buffet, but actually make it a good quality offering. Looking at smaller portions, changed more often, all of those kind of things can really leverage that. And then when I look at explore, and especially within Asia, the one area we don't normally talk don't talk a lot about is really about the businesses that we partner with, but also sharing some of the really great local stories that we've got. So, Fairmont Swiss Hotel, we've got Aqua Farm that's on the rooftop. 25% of the dishes or vegetarian dishes, vegetables for that hotel come out of that garden itself. It's a full hydroponic solution. We ran that for a number of years, and then all of a sudden, we changed general managers, and they said, "This is great. Why aren't we sharing this story with our guests?" And I think that's probably the part that you find that there's two ends of the spectrum. So you'll either find that a group will remove plastic straws from their hotel, and they'll put a newspaper ad in the paper saying that they've cured plastic, right through to the other end of the spectrum where you can have a full change to single-use plastic and what we're doing in hotels that has been going for years and years and years, and yet we don't promote it, we don't talk about it. And I know we're not alone. Hyatt, Hilton, all of the Intercontinental, all of the big players in the world have all taken different steps in this space. So I think the opportunity is for us, especially around that stay space, is to really educate, share our stories, share the local experience, make sure people understand it. Because what we find is, and looking at what we've found in Asia, is by going through the removal of single-use plastic or going through energy reduction or food waste reduction, we're not actually only impacting our hotels, but it's also about when people go home. And I've had the privilege of going into Singapore quite a few times, and when you go through a 7-Eleven or you go through a Family Mart and they go, "Would you like a plastic bag?" and people go, "I'm okay. I can survive without a plastic bag." All of those things, actually changing of behavior at the very simplest level, is really how we as an industry can really move forward and build not only a better future, but we can actually start to impact on different organizations around what we should be doing in the business. But I think that's probably enough of me talking about what we do and what other companies do.